The first sign that my day was going to end badly should have been the fact that everyone kept telling me how pretty I looked. Normally, I arrived at the Lakeview Institute of Art and Design wearing whatever clean clothes I could find before sunrise. My usual graduate student uniform consisted of black slacks, a plain blouse, comfortable shoes, and the expression of a woman who had spent the previous night arguing with a printer. That morning, however, I had made an effort. My cream wrap dress fit closely at my waist before falling softly around my knees. I had curled my long brown hair instead of twisting it into the careless knot I wore almost every day, and I had even put on the pearl earrings my mother gave me for my 25th birthday. I looked feminine, polished, and almost well-rested. The last part was a lie, but nobody needed to know that. Naomi Brooks noticed the difference the moment I entered the graduate office. She slowly lowered the folder she had been reading and looked me over from my heels to my hair. "Claire, do you have a date today?" My hand froze halfway to my laptop. Across the room, two other teaching assistants immediately looked up because apparently nobody at that university had enough work of their own. "Is it really that obvious?" I asked as I placed my bag beside my desk. Naomi leaned back in her chair and continued inspecting me. "You're wearing lipstick before noon." "I wear lipstick." "You wear tinted lip balm and call it lipstick because you enjoy lying to yourself." One of the assistants across the room laughed. I sat down quickly and opened my laptop, hoping that appearing busy might end the conversation. It did not. "It isn't a big deal," I told her. Naomi rolled her chair closer to my desk. "It is absolutely a big deal. You look like the elegant female lead in a romance movie right before she meets the love of her life at a candlelit restaurant. I'm meeting Madison, not starring in a movie." "That explains it. How long have you two been dating now?" 3 years? Naomi pressed one hand dramatically against her chest. 3 years? And you still dress up like this just to see her? That's annoyingly adorable. I pretended to focus on my unread emails, although the pleased smile trying to appear on my face probably betrayed me. Madison and I had not seen each other in almost 3 weeks. She had been preparing for a promotion at her company, and I had been trapped between my graduate thesis, my teaching duties, and Professor Mercer's endless list of emergencies. I used the word emergency generously. To Professor Adrian Mercer, everything was an emergency. A missing paint order was an emergency. A delayed exhibition label was an emergency. A student using the wrong shade of blue was apparently an attack on the future of American art. "I've canceled on Madison 4 times this month," I admitted. 5, Naomi corrected immediately, holding up one hand. I turned toward her. "Why are you counting?" "Because watching your life fall apart is one of the few free activities available to graduate students." I chose to ignore that. "Madison understands. She has always supported my career." Naomi rested her chin against her palm. "She really never complains about how much time you spend here?" "Not seriously. She knows how important my doctorate is to me." "And she is still willing to wait for you?" I knew what Naomi was asking, and judging from the interested faces around the office, everyone else did too. Unfortunately, Naomi believed personal boundaries were challenges created specifically for her entertainment. "Yes," I answered firmly. "Madison respects my decision." My family had never been especially religious, but I had grown up believing intimacy should mean something. I did not necessarily need a wedding ring before allowing someone that close to me, but I needed certainty. I needed safety and commitment. Madison had promised that she understood. She had even told me she loved how seriously I treated relationships. Naomi looked genuinely impressed. "And she has never pressured you?" "Never. That woman might actually be an angel." I smiled despite myself. "That's what I keep telling you." Naomi folded her arms and studied me with a strange expression. "What?" I asked. "I'm just wondering how an angel managed to date you for 3 years without discovering your real personality." "My real personality is perfectly pleasant." "You threatened to break the copier last week." "It started it." Naomi laughed and I returned my attention to the computer. I should have known she was not finished. "So what happens after Madison gets the promotion?" she asked. "We spend more time together." "And then?" "And then nothing." "You're blushing." "I am not." "You look like a tomato wearing expensive earrings." I clicked on the first email in my inbox without reading the subject. Naomi leaned closer, lowering her voice, even though everyone was already listening. "Are you planning to marry her?" I hesitated. That was enough of an answer. Naomi's mouth fell open. "You are! Keep your voice down. You actually want to marry Madison? Eventually, we've discussed the future." She stared at me as though I had revealed that I was secretly royalty. "Wow, I didn't think you had it in you. To get married? To willingly share a home with another human being." I nudged the wheel of her chair with my foot and sent her rolling backward. She laughed while I tried to concentrate, but the truth was that I had imagined marrying Madison many times. We would do it after her promotion and after I finished the most demanding stage of my graduate work. We would move into a larger apartment, I would teach and paint, Madison would continue building her career. It was a sensible future, a secure future, and exactly the kind of future I had always wanted. My phone rang. Naomi and I both looked down at the screen. Professor Mercer flashed across it. Naomi covered her mouth. "No." I stared at the phone as though it were a small explosive device. It continued ringing. "Do not answer that. He is a grown man. He should learn how to survive one afternoon without you. He's my advisor. He is also ruining your life." The phone rang again. I closed my eyes briefly before accepting the call. "Hello, Professor Mercer. Where are you?" "I'm in the graduate office." "Good. I need you to prepare the installation notes for tomorrow's review." My heart sank. "I sent the installation notes yesterday. The format needs to be revised." "What part of the format needs to be changed?" "All of it." I looked up at the ceiling while Naomi watched my expression with the quiet sympathy normally reserved for terminal illnesses. Professor Mercer continued speaking, informing me that he needed the notes reformatted, printed, checked against the gallery floor plan, and delivered to his office by the end of the day. "I understand," I said, although what I understood was that I hated him. He added 3 more tasks before mentioning an evening meeting that apparently required my attendance. My fingers tightened around the phone. "Yes, Professor, I understand." He thanked me for being flexible. I thanked him for understanding. Neither of us meant what we said. When the call ended, I placed my phone carefully on the desk. Naomi waited for me to say something, but I only smiled. Naomi leaned away from me. "That expression is frightening." "I'm fine. You look like you're planning a murder." "I would never murder my academic advisor." "You're imagining it. That is not illegal." Her teasing softened when she saw me open my message thread with Madison. "Another canceled date?" I stared at the message I needed to send. "Another canceled date. I'm sorry, Claire." The most recent section of my conversation with Madison was filled with apologies from me. "I'm sorry, Mercer changed the schedule. I'm sorry, something happened with the exhibition. I'm sorry, can we do next week?" Madison always replied with patience. "Don't worry, I understand. You're working hard. I'm proud of you." Guilt settled heavily inside my chest. She really is an angel. Naomi immediately made her voice unnaturally sweet. "Madison is an angel. Madison understands me. Madison supports my dreams." I turned and glared at her. "There she is," Naomi said, dropping the imitation. "The real Claire Bennett." Through the glass wall of the graduate office, students moved along the main hallway. Some carried portfolios while others balanced coffee cups, sketchbooks, and expressions of deep academic regret. A group of architecture students stood near the staircase, and one of them caught my attention. Not because I wanted her to. Dani Kingston had a way of making people notice her. She stood with one shoulder against the wall while a blonde student spoke animatedly beside her. Dani's long, dark hair fell in loose waves down her back. She wore fitted black trousers and a pale silk blouse with the sleeves rolled up, revealing the fine line tattoo curling around her forearm. Several delicate silver rings decorated her fingers. She looked elegant and rebellious at the same time, which I found unnecessarily irritating. Naomi followed my gaze and made a soft sound. "Oh." I looked away immediately. "What?" "Nothing." "You said, 'oh.'" "I was breathing." "You do not breathe like that." Naomi leaned slightly closer to the glass. "Dani Kingston becomes more beautiful every time I see her." "Does she?" I asked, pretending to be interested in an email. "You were looking directly at her." "I was looking into the hallway." And she happened to be standing in the exact center of it? I refused to answer. Naomi continued watching Dani as if she had forgotten we were meant to be working. She always has women around her, Naomi said. Do you think she is dating the blonde? I have no idea. You grew up with her. That does not mean I receive reports about her personal life. Naomi turned back toward me. It is still strange that the two of you pretend not to know each other. We don't pretend. You've known her since childhood. We stopped being friends years ago. Why? I straightened a stack of papers that did not need straightening. That was the simple answer. The honest answer was more complicated. Daniela and I were once inseparable. Our mothers were close friends and our families lived in the same wealthy suburb north of Chicago. Daniela spent so much time at my house that my father used to joke that we should charge her rent. Then we turned 14. Daniela started skipping family dinners, arguing with teachers, sneaking out, and returning home with new piercings she was forced to remove before school. I became serious about art, while she became serious about making every adult around her furious.
I thought she was reckless. She thought I was judgmental. We were both correct. By high school, we barely spoke. By university, we had perfected the art of walking past one another like strangers. Naomi glanced at Dani again. I heard she's extremely talented. Her family donated an entire building. That is not the same thing. Money opens many doors. You know she won the Marston Design Prize last year, don't you? I did not answer. Naomi smiled. You do know. People talk. You pay attention. I hear things about the university. Things about Dani. Things about many students. You are pretending not to care. I do not care. Your face says otherwise. My face is not saying anything. It looks like a beautiful snake. I turned toward her slowly. Naomi raised both hands. Please don't look at me like that. In the hallway, Dani laughed at something the blonde student said. Then she glanced through the glass wall and her eyes met mine. I stopped breathing for one uncomfortable second. Dani did not look away. She simply watched me with a calm, unreadable expression before one corner of her mouth lifted. It was not a full smile. It was something worse, something that made it seem as though she knew exactly what Naomi and I had been discussing. I stood abruptly. I need to deliver some forms. Naomi looked at my empty hands. What forms? I'll find some. I picked up my bag and left the office before she could answer. As I crossed the hallway, I kept my eyes forward, although I could feel Dani watching me. I did not turn toward her. I had become very skilled at ignoring Dani Kingston. At least, that was what I told myself. By 6 that evening, I had completed every task Professor Mercer gave me. The installation notes were revised, the floor plans were checked, and the labels were printed. I had also resisted the urge to place Professor Mercer inside one of the large shipping crates in the gallery storage room. Professionally, it had been a successful day. Personally, I was miserable. I sat alone in the graduate office staring at the apology I had written to Madison, but had not yet sent. I'm sorry, I have to cancel again. Before I could press the button, my phone rang. Professor Mercer's name appeared on the screen, and I answered with the emotional energy of a hostage. Yes, Professor? Cherry, the meeting is canceled. I sat up. What? I have a headache, so I'm going home. For several seconds, I could not speak. Of course, I hope you feel better. We'll discuss everything tomorrow. Certainly. Have a good evening. You too. The moment he disconnected, I stood so quickly that my chair rolled into the wall. I had the evening free, and Madison did not know. Our original dinner reservation had been canceled, but I could still surprise her. I opened our message thread and typed a question. Are you home tonight? I stared at it before deleting it. A surprise would be better. Madison loved fried chicken from a restaurant near her apartment. I could pick it up, bring a bottle of wine, and appear at her door. After weeks of canceled plans, I could finally do something romantic. For the first time all day, everything felt right. Madison lived in a modern apartment building in River North. I knew the front desk staff, and I still had the spare key she had given me the previous year. By the time I stepped out of the elevator, the smell of fried chicken had filled the hallway.
I balanced the food bag in one hand and quietly unlocked her door. The apartment was warm, and soft music played from somewhere inside. Madison? No one answered. I stepped farther into the living room and noticed a pair of high heels beside the sofa. They were not mine. For several seconds, I stared at them while my mind offered reasonable explanations. A friend had visited. A coworker had stopped by. Perhaps Madison had purchased new shoes. Apparently, my mind was willing to work very hard to protect me from reality. A tall, blonde woman appeared in the hallway, wrapped in a white towel. When she saw the food bag in my hand, she smiled. "Oh, great, you can put the delivery on the counter." I did not move, and her smile gradually disappeared. Behind her, the bedroom door opened. Madison stepped into the hallway wearing another towel. "Did the chicken get here?" She looked toward me, and every trace of color vanished from her face. "Claire?" The food bag slipped slightly in my hand. The blonde woman turned toward Madison. "You know her?" Madison opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I stared at the woman, then at Madison. Both had wet hair, both were wrapped in towels. The bedroom door behind them was open, and clothes were scattered across the floor. I was an artist. I understood visual storytelling. There was no innocent interpretation of that composition. "Claire?" Madison said again. "I can explain." The blonde woman tightened her towel. "Madison, who is she?" I raised my eyes to Madison's terrified face. She did not look guilty. She looked frightened, as though I was the problem that had suddenly arrived at her door. "I'm her girlfriend," I said. The blonde woman's expression changed as she looked at Madison. Madison stepped toward me. "Claire, it isn't what you think." There are sentences so ridiculous that hearing them creates a strange kind of calm. That was one of them. I looked at their towels, the open bedroom, and the unfamiliar shoes before meeting Madison's eyes again. "What exactly do you believe I think?" She reached for me, but I stepped away. Her towel loosened and she grabbed it before it could fall. It might have been funny in another life. "Please," she begged, "just let me explain." I placed the bag of chicken on the floor between us. My hands had started to shake, and I did not want either of them to see. "I hope you enjoy dinner." "Claire!" I turned and walked out. Madison followed me into the hallway, one hand still holding her towel closed. "Wait, it was a mistake. She came over after work and we had drinks. It wasn't planned." The elevator doors opened, but before I stepped inside, I turned toward her. "How long?" Madison froze. That was my answer. A short laugh escaped me, but it sounded nothing like my own voice. "Claire? Please." I entered the elevator and Madison caught the door with one hand. "Please don't leave like this. We need to talk. For 3 years, I believed your face was the safest place in the world. Now I can barely look at you. Take your hand out of the elevator. We can fix this." "How long, Madison?" Her eyes filled with tears. I had never seen anything make me angrier. "Get your hand out. Please, move." Something in my voice finally reached her. She stepped back and the doors closed between us. I stood alone in the mirrored elevator, staring at my reflection. My curls were still perfect, my lipstick had not smudged, my cream dress looked elegant. I looked exactly like the woman on her way to meet the love of her life. I covered my mouth with my hand and started laughing. It was either that or scream. By the time the elevator reached the lobby, I was doing both. I had always believed heartbreak would feel dramatic. I imagined tears falling beautifully while rain hit the windows, and I imagined staring into the distance while sad music played somewhere nearby. In reality, heartbreak made me buy a bottle of cheap wine, 2 canned cocktails, and a packet of crackers from a 24-hour market. Then it made me sit outside at a metal table beneath fluorescent lighting. There was no rain, there was no music. A delivery truck kept reversing nearby and making an irritating beeping sound. It was deeply disappointing. I poured one of the canned cocktails into a plastic cup and stared at it. 3 years. 3 years of canceled dinners, supportive messages, anniversary gifts, and promises about our future. 3 years of Madison telling me she respected my boundaries. 3 years of me believing her. I drank the cocktail, which tasted like fruit-flavored cleaning liquid, and then drank some more. Angel, I muttered bitterly. A man walking past glanced at me, so I pointed toward the empty chair across the table. Not you. He walked faster. I looked at my phone. Madison had called 12 times, and her messages arrived one after another. Please answer. Let me explain. It didn't mean anything. I love you. That last message made me feel sick. I turned my phone face down and stared at the plastic cup. She said she wanted to protect what we had. She said waiting made it special. The cup offered no opinion. She said she would wait until I was ready. Apparently, she was waiting, she just wasn't waiting alone. My voice broke, and I hated that. I pressed my palms against my eyes. I did not want to cry in front of a convenience store. I had standards. Very low standards at that particular moment, but still. My phone vibrated again. I rejected Madison's call. She wanted intimacy? I whispered angrily. Fine. I can do intimacy. I can find someone tonight. A woman entering the store gave me a concerned look. I'm speaking generally, I told her. She went inside without replying. My thoughts had become warm and slow. Even though I knew cheating was Madison's choice, part of me could not stop thinking that she had done it because I would not sleep with her. Had everyone known? Had she laughed about my patience while she went home to another woman? Had I been the only person who believed we were building a future? I'll do it too, I announced to nobody. I'll sleep with someone else. Player? I lifted my head and found Dani standing beside the table. She wore dark jeans, ankle boots, and a fitted gray top beneath a black leather jacket. Her long hair was tied into a loose ponytail, and even beneath the terrible fluorescent lights, she looked unfairly beautiful. I narrowed my eyes. You. Dani's eyebrows rose. That is usually what people call me when they forget my name. I know your name. Good. I was worried the alcohol had damaged your memory. Her gaze moved over the cans and bottles on the table. How much have you had? Not enough. Clearly too much. When I raised the can toward my mouth again, Dani took it from my hand. Give that back. No, you can't take things from people. You used to steal my lunch every Tuesday. We were 10. It still hurt. I reached for the can, but Dani held it beyond my reach. When I tried again, I nearly slid off the chair, and she caught me by the shoulder. All right, you're finished. I'm not finished. You can barely sit. I'm sitting beautifully. You're leaning against a trash can. I looked beside me and discovered that the trash can was indeed closer than I remembered. I moved away from it with as much dignity as possible. Dani sat across from me and looked directly into my face. What happened? Nothing. You are drunk outside a market on a Thursday night. I'm an adult. That wasn't my question. Her teasing expression had disappeared. She appeared genuinely concerned, and for some reason, that made everything worse. My girlfriend cheated on me. The words escaped before I could stop them. Dani remained still for a moment. Madison? I hated that she remembered her name. Yes. When did you find out? Tonight. How? I brought chicken. That explains almost nothing. I went to surprise her. Another woman answered the door wearing a towel, and then Madison came out wearing another towel. Dani's jaw tightened. She told you it wasn't what it looked like. I stared at her. How did you know? Because unfaithful people are rarely creative. It looked like two women had taken a shower. They had. Then it was exactly what it looked like. I pointed at her. That is what I said. You did not say that. I thought it. Close enough. My eyes filled again, and I turned away before Dani could see. She did not mention it. Instead, she pushed the packet of crackers toward me. Eat something. I don't want crackers. You need food. I had chicken. No, you left it at Madison's apartment. I frowned at her. How do you know that? You just told me. I did? Yes. Oh. Dani opened the packet and held out a cracker. When I told her I was not a child, she placed it back on the table. Then take it yourself. I took one. It tasted like dust, but I ate it anyway. For the next several minutes, Dani sat quietly while I told her everything. Or at least I believe I told her everything. My memory of that conversation later became unreliable. I talked about the towels, Madison's messages, and how stupid I felt for waiting. At one point, I may have described Madison as a demon wearing expensive moisturizer. Dani did not laugh. That was unusually kind of her. She said she understood. For 3 years, she said she understood. This is not your fault, Claire. She cheated because I wouldn't sleep with her. She cheated because she chose to cheat. You don't know that. Yes, I do. You don't know anything about relationships. Dani leaned back and looked offended. That is a surprisingly cruel thing to say to someone who was currently preventing you from falling into a trash can.
I stared at her. You have been with a lot of women. According to whom? Everyone. Everyone sounds extremely informed. You always have women around you. So do you. You work at an art school. That isn't the same. Dani sighed, and I found myself staring at her mouth. That was a mistake. Dani had a beautiful mouth. I had noticed it years ago and made a serious effort never to notice it again. The alcohol destroyed that effort. You're very pretty, I told her. She blinked. Thank you. Annoyingly pretty. I'll still accept it. It wasn't a compliment. It sounded like one. You always look like you know something everyone else doesn't. Usually I do. I don't like you. I know. I used to like you, I said, and something shifted in her expression. When we were children, I quickly added. Of course. You became terrible. And you became judgmental. You had blue hair. It was temporary dye. You pierced your nose. It healed. You skipped school. I was bored. You broke into the community swimming pool. Dani smiled. You came with me. I stood outside. You held my shoes. To stop you from losing them. Her smile hurt me in a way I did not understand. I looked down at my hands. Madison said she wanted to marry me. Dani's smile disappeared completely. I'm sorry. I thought she was safe. I know. No, you don't. Dani did not argue with me. My anger returned. I hated Madison, I hated myself, and I hated the entire idea of trusting anyone. I'm going to sleep with someone, I declared. Dani slowly turned toward me. What? I'm going to do it too. Do what? Have sex. A young man sitting at the next table coughed loudly. Dani glanced at him, and he picked up his drink before moving farther away. I pointed directly at Dani. You. Her eyes widened. No. Why not? Because you're drunk? I'm aware. You will not remember this conversation tomorrow. I remember everything. Dani folded her arms. What did you eat for breakfast? I thought carefully. Coffee. That is not food. I had 2 coffees. Dani stood and picked up my bag. Come on, I'm taking you home. I invited you to sleep with me, and I rejected the invitation. That's rude. It's responsible. I don't want responsible. I had responsible for 3 years. For one moment, something painful appeared on Dani's face. It vanished before I could understand it. Claire, stand up. No. She lifted my bag. Then I'm leaving with this. That's mine. Yes. You're stealing. I'll return it when you can walk in a straight line. I stood to prove her wrong, but the ground moved unexpectedly. Dani caught me around the waist, and I grabbed her shoulders to keep from falling. For one strange second, our faces were extremely close. Her perfume was soft and expensive. You smell good, I whispered. You're going to hate yourself tomorrow. Probably. Then I vomited on her jacket. I woke to sunlight, a violent headache, and the uncomfortable awareness that I was not wearing clothes.
For several seconds, I remained completely still. The room was unfamiliar, with white walls, large windows, gray sheets, and a framed architectural drawing above the bed. I looked down. A blanket covered me, but my dress was nowhere to be seen. Slowly, carefully, I turned my head. Dani lay beside me beneath the same blanket, one bare shoulder visible. My mind stopped working. Then it began working much too quickly. I screamed. Dani jerked awake and sat up. What happened? You! She blinked at me. Yes? What did you do? What? I pulled the blanket tightly around my body. You took advantage of me. Dani stared at me before closing her eyes. Oh no. You bastard. She opened one eye. I'm a woman. You know what I mean. No, I genuinely don't. Do you remember anything from last night? I remember enough. Do you remember vomiting on me? Heat rushed into my face. What? You threw up on my jacket, my shirt, your dress, and one of my shoes. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. I would remember that. You also cried because you thought the cashier looked lonely. I said nothing. She tried to give her your earrings. That does not sound like me. You called a streetlight emotionally distant. I covered my face as fragments of the previous night began returning. I remembered the market, the alcohol, Dani holding me upright, and the humiliating warmth in my throat. I also vaguely remembered her carrying me into a building while I complained that elevators were judgmental. I looked down at the blanket. Why are we undressed? Because everything we were wearing smelled terrible. Everything? You somehow got sick on my jeans. That seems physically impossible. It was impressive. Why am I in your bed? You refused to sleep on the sofa. I would never do that. You said the sofa had bad energy. I closed my eyes again. Dani continued without mercy. I gave you one of my shirts, but you removed it because you said the fabric was oppressing you. Then you stole my blanket, kicked me twice, and kept asking me to sleep with you. I opened my eyes. What? I refused every time. My chest loosened slightly. Nothing had happened. Relief came first, followed quickly by unbearable embarrassment. You should have taken me home. I tried. You could not remember your security code. I know my security code. You told me it was your birthday. It is not my birthday. I know. She leaned back against the headboard. You also refused to call your mother because you said she would sense weakness. Unfortunately, that does sound like me. So nothing happened? I asked. Nothing.
You didn't touch me? I helped you change after you got sick. That counts as touching. I kept my eyes closed. You probably looked. I have seen women before, Claire. I glared at her. Dani's mouth curved. She leaned closer. Although you did say you were curious. My heart jumped. About what? Me? I did not. You asked whether the rumors were true. What rumors? That I'm good in bed. My face burned. Dani moved slightly closer. Would you like to find out? I shoved her shoulder. Stop it. She laughed. You are horrible. You accused me of taking advantage of you. I had just woken up naked beside you. Fair. And I would never sleep with you. That is not what you said last night. I was drunk. Very. I wouldn't do it while sober. Dani studied me. The amusement in her eyes faded into something warmer. Why not? There are many reasons. Name one. You're irritating, but has never stopped you from speaking to me. You have a terrible reputation. So do several famous artists. You look like you collect diseases. Silence. Dani stared at me. I immediately regretted it. That was rude, she said. I'm upset. You've always been rude when you're upset. I know what I mean. No, explain it. You're always surrounded by women. So I don't know where you've been. Dani's eyebrows rose. Claire Bennett, are you worried about my sexual health? I am worried about my own. She looked offended.
Then she pulled the blanket higher and lay back down. Fine. What are you doing? Sleeping. You can't sleep now. You drained all my energy. I did nothing. You cried for 2 hours, vomited on half my wardrobe, accused the moon of following us, and attempted to bite me when I took away your phone. I did not bite you. Dani lifted her hand. A faint mark showed on the side of her thumb. I stared at it. I'm going home. Good idea. Where are my clothes? In the laundry room. Do you have anything I can wear? Dani pointed toward the closet without opening her eyes. I climbed out of bed while holding the blanket around me. As I passed, she spoke. For the record, I get tested. I stopped. What? You said you looked diseased. I didn't say you looked diseased. You said you looked like you collected diseases. That is different. It is worse. I opened the closet. Most of Dani's clothing would be too long on me, but I found a soft sweater dress hanging near the back. Can I wear this? No. I turned. She was smiling. I threw a pillow at her. By the time I returned to my apartment, my headache had become personal. A note had been tucked inside my bag. Drink water. Eat something. Try not to insult anyone before noon. Dani. I crumpled it. Then I smoothed it out and placed it on the kitchen counter. I showered for nearly an hour. Afterward, I stood in my robe and stared at my phone. There were 26 missed calls from Madison. Her newest message was different. Please meet me. I'll tell you everything. I should have blocked her. Instead, I agreed. Not because I wanted her back. I needed to hear the truth. I needed to know whether the last 3 years had been real or whether I had invented the entire relationship inside my own mind. We met that afternoon at a quiet coffee shop near her office. Madison was already sitting at a corner table. She looked exhausted. Part of me hated that she still looked beautiful. Her blonde hair was pulled into a low ponytail. She wore the navy suit I had helped her choose for an important presentation the year before. When she saw me, she stood. Claire. I sat without hugging her. She slowly lowered herself into the chair across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Madison reached across the table. I moved my hand away. She looked down. I'm sorry. How long? It was a mistake. That isn't an answer. The woman you saw is named Rebecca. She works on my team. How long? Madison swallowed. A few months. The room seemed to become quieter. A few months, I repeated. It wasn't serious. You brought her into your apartment. She was going through a difficult time, so you helped her by removing your clothes. Madison flinched. I felt no satisfaction. I never wanted to hurt you. You lied to me every day. I love you. No, you do. You do not get to use that word right now. Tears filled his eyes. Again, I became angry. You don't understand what it's been like, she said softly. Then explain it. I've tried to be patient. My spine straightened. There it is. What? The part where this becomes my fault. I'm not blaming you. You are about to. Madison pressed her lips together. We've been together for 3 years, Claire. I know. We respected what you wanted. I did not force you to remain in the relationship. That isn't what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? She looked around the coffee shop before lowering her voice. I needed more. I laughed quietly. You needed another woman? I needed intimacy, affection. I needed to feel wanted. I loved you. You were never fully present. Because I was working? Because every time I tried to get close to you, you became afraid. I stared at her. Madison continued before I could interrupt. I waited. I told myself it would change after 1 semester, then after another exhibition, then after my promotion. You could have ended the relationship. I didn't want to lose you, so you kept me and found someone else. That is not how I saw it. How did you see it? She had no answer. I picked up my bag. Madison reached for my arm. Please. I pulled away. Claire, we can fix this. No, it never meant anything. That makes it worse. She stood. Don't throw away 3 years over one mistake. It was not one mistake. You said it lasted months. I can stop seeing her. You should have stopped before I opened your door. Madison's expression hardened. Do you honestly believe none of this would have happened if you had slept with me even once?
I went still. She seemed to realize what she had said. Claire, I didn't mean. You did. I'm upset. You cheated on me and you are upset? I'm trying to explain why it happened. No, you're trying to explain why I caused it. That isn't fair. Neither was finding you naked with your employee. People had begun looking at us. I did not care. Madison lowered her voice. I gave you everything I could. No, you gave me whatever was left after you finished lying. Her face crumpled. I felt my own heart breaking again, but this time there was something beneath the pain. Anger. Clarity. I'm ending this, I said. Claire, we are done. You don't mean that. I do. You love me. I did. The words hurt as they left me. Madison stared at me. I walked away before she could see me cry.
There are healthy ways to recover from heartbreak. Some people exercise. Some people spend time with friends. Some people begin therapy, learn pottery, or take a peaceful vacation somewhere surrounded by mountains. I went to a bar. To be fair, I briefly considered calling Naomi. Then I remembered that she would ask questions, and I was not emotionally prepared to explain that Madison had blamed her affair on my refusal to sleep with her. I also did not want Naomi to learn that I had woken up naked in Dani Kingston's bed after vomiting on her. Some truths needed time before they became stories. I sat at the bar and ordered a cocktail, followed by another. Then I began combining drinks in a way that would have offended any trained bartender. The woman serving me watched as I poured part of a sweet cocktail into my whiskey. "Are you sure about that?" "No." She nodded, as though that was the most honest answer she had heard all evening. I took a drink. It was terrible, which seemed appropriate. Madison was not an angel. She was not even a decent person wearing wings. She was Satan in a navy business suit. I stared into the glass and wondered why everyone seemed so obsessed with sex. Madison ruined 3 years because she needed intimacy. Naomi discussed it as though it were a basic food group. And Dani walked through campus with women orbiting her like she controlled gravity. Was I the only person who had not received the instruction manual? Bad night? I turned and found a red-haired woman standing beside me. She was attractive, probably around my age, and dressed in a fitted green dress. She smiled. "Is the seat taken?" "Yes." Her gaze moved to the empty stool. "By whom?" "My emotional damage." She laughed and sat down anyway. "I'm Vanessa." "Claire." "Are you here alone?" "Yes." "Would you like some company?" "No." Her smile widened. "You answered that very quickly." "I'm trying to improve my decision-making." "Is it working?" I looked down at my drink. "No." Vanessa leaned closer and placed her hand lightly on the bar near mine. "Can I buy you something?" "She has enough." I closed my eyes. Of course. Dani stood behind us wearing a fitted black dress beneath a long beige coat. Her dark hair fell over one shoulder in smooth waves, and small gold earrings caught the light. She looked like a woman arriving at an expensive dinner. She also looked annoyed. Vanessa glanced between us. "Do you know her?" "Unfortunately," I answered. Dani ignored me and looked directly at Vanessa. "She's leaving." Vanessa turned back towards me. "Is she your girlfriend?" "No," Dani and I replied at the same time. Vanessa raised her eyebrows. Dani gave her a smile that contained no warmth. "She's my friend." "I didn't ask you to rescue me." "I know." "Then go away." Vanessa slowly stood and picked up her drink. "I think I'll let the two of you handle whatever this is." "There is nothing to handle." "Good luck with that." She disappeared into the crowd before I could stop her. I turned angrily towards Dani. "What is wrong with you?" She removed her coat and sat on the empty stool. "I was about to ask you the same thing. You chased her away. She will survive." "I might have liked her. You did not even know her last name." "I could have learned it." Dani signaled to the bartender and asked for water. When the glass arrived, she pushed it towards me. I glared at it. "I don't want water. It's for me." "Then drink it." Instead, Dani picked up a spoon from the counter and lightly tapped my forehead. Ow! That did not hurt. It was insulting. Good. I rubbed my forehead while Dani leaned closer. "You cannot fix a broken heart by going home with the first woman who smiles at you." "Why not?"
Because you know nothing about her. I knew everything about Madison, and that did not help. Dani's expression softened briefly before she looked away. There are safer ways to be reckless. That sentence makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. You get to do whatever you want. Dani turned towards me. What exactly do you think I do? You sleep with women. Sometimes. You flirt with everyone. I did not flirt with Vanessa. You almost threatened her. I was being friendly. You looked like you were planning to bury her. That is simply my face. Despite myself, I almost laughed, but I stopped it before she could notice. I don't need your protection. Maybe not. Then stop appearing whenever I'm drunk. You are the one who keeps getting drunk in public. I'm going through something. So go through it with dignity. I stared at her in disbelief. When Dani reached for the spoon again, I grabbed it first. I am not a child. You are behaving like one. I'm 26. Congratulations. I can sleep with anyone I want. Yes. Then stop interfering. I will stop interfering when you choose someone who looks like she collects women's phone numbers as a competitive sport. I folded my arms. You are one to talk. Dani's gaze sharpened. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. No, Claire, you know rumors. I looked away because she was right, which only made the situation more irritating. Dani took a slow drink of water. You want to forget Madison? Yes. Then forget her. I'm trying. Going home with a stranger will not erase 3 years. How would you know? She placed the glass down. I know more than you think. Something in her voice made me look at her. Dani's expression had become unreadable again. I thought about the previous night. She had rejected me while I was drunk, taken care of me, washed my clothes, and left a note in my bag. Despite every rumor about her, Dani had been safer than the woman I trusted for 3 years. An idea began to form. It was a terrible idea, but that did not stop it from becoming stronger.
Dani noticed me staring. What? If I wanted to do something reckless? No. You don't even know what I was going to say. I know that expression. What expression? The one you had before we broke into the community pool. You broke in. You carried my shoes. I leaned closer. What if it wasn't a stranger? Dani's eyes narrowed. Claire. What if it was someone I already knew? Her gaze cropped briefly toward my mouth before returning to my eyes. You're drinking again. I have had 2 drinks. 3. The first one barely counted. It contained whiskey. I'm not drunk. You are making poor decisions. I make poor decisions while sober, too. That is not reassuring. I took a slow breath as my heart beat harder. Sleep with me. Dani stared at me, and the noise of the bar seemed to fade. I expected her to laugh, but she did not. You rejected me last night because I was drunk. I reminded her. You were extremely drunk. I'm not now. You're hurt. Yes. You're angry. Yes. You might regret this tomorrow. I regret almost everything. I have learned to function. Dani watched me carefully. You said you thought I had a disease. I said you looked like you might collect them. That correction does not help. Do you? Do I what? Have anything? Her lips parted before she burst into genuine laughter. I immediately felt insulted. This is a serious question. I know. You should answer it. Still smiling, Dani opened her handbag, removed a folded document, and placed it on the bar between us. I stared down at the medical test report. You carry this around? I received the results today. Why did you get tested? Because a certain woman accused me of being a public health risk. You got tested because of something I said? I was offended. You're unbelievable. I am also completely healthy. I picked up the report. Her name appeared clearly at the top, along with a recent date and negative results. When I looked up, Dani rested one elbow against the bar. Are you planning to retreat now? No. You can. I know. I won't be offended. You carried medical test results in your handbag because I insulted you. I already told you I was offended.
You're strange. So are you. Her teasing expression gradually faded. Claire, if this happens, it does not become revenge against Madison. I know, and I will not let you pretend later that I forced you. You won't need to. I need you to say it clearly. My palms became damp. Dani's seriousness made the situation real. This was no longer a reckless statement thrown across a bar. She was giving me an opportunity to leave. Part of me wanted to take it. Another part of me, the part that had spent years controlling every emotion, every risk, and every desire, was tired of being afraid. I want this. Dani held my gaze. Because you want me? The question was more difficult. I could have claimed that she was simply convenient or that this was only about Madison, but neither answer would have been honest. I had noticed Dani long before that night. I noticed whenever she entered a room. I noticed the women who stood too close to her. I noticed the way her voice changed when she became serious. I had spent years pretending not to know her because knowing her had always affected me too much. Yes, I whispered, because I want you. Dani remained still for several seconds before reaching for her coat. My stomach dropped. Where are you going? To pay the bill. Oh, her mouth curved. Unless you changed your mind. I stood so quickly that I nearly hit the bar. I didn't. Good.
Dani drove us to a hotel downtown. The choice made sense because neither of us wanted to go to my apartment where every room contained some reminder of Madison. Dani's apartment was also out of the question. I had already humiliated myself there once that week. The hotel lobby was elegant and quiet, and I became more nervous with every step. Dani handled the reservation while I stood beside her pretending to study a large floral arrangement. The receptionist smiled at us. "Enjoy your evening." My face heated, but Dani thanked her casually. Inside the elevator, I stared at the changing numbers above the doors while Dani stood beside me in silence. When the doors finally opened, I stepped out too quickly. "Our room is the other way," she told me. I turned. I knew that. Of course. Dani walked ahead, and I followed while hating the confidence in her stride. At the room, she used the keycard and opened the door. The space was modern and softly lit, with a large bed near windows overlooking the glowing Chicago skyline. I entered slowly, and the door closed behind us with a quiet click that somehow sounded final. Dani placed her bag on the desk while I remained near the window. "This is your last chance to leave." "I'm not leaving." "You look like you're considering climbing down the building." "I'm on the 22nd floor." "So you noticed." "I notice things." "You failed to notice your girlfriend cheating for months." The words landed badly. Dani immediately closed her eyes and exhaled. "That was cruel. I'm sorry." I turned away from her. She approached but stopped several feet away. "You do not have to prove anything tonight." "I'm not trying to prove anything." "That is almost convincing." I sighed. "I'm nervous." "I know. Don't make fun of me." "I won't." "I mean it." "So do I." I folded my arms over my chest, and Dani's expression softened. "You don't have to do anything you aren't ready to do." "I know. You can change your mind at any moment." "I know that too." "Then stop looking at the door as though it is calling for help." "I don't know what I'm doing." "That's fine. You do." "A little." "A little?" She smiled. "Enough." I looked toward the bed, and my heart began beating so loudly that I could hear it. Dani slowly held out one hand without touching me. The simple gesture calmed something inside me. I placed my hand in hers, and her fingers closed gently around mine. "Still sure?" she asked. "Yes." She stepped closer. I expected her to kiss me immediately, but instead she lifted her free hand and moved a strand of hair away from my face. The touch was soft, too soft. It made me more nervous than anything bold would have. "You're shaking," she murmured. "I'm cold." "The room is warm." "I'm aware." A faint smile appeared on Dani's lips. "Claire, you can breathe." "I am breathing." Barely. I took an exaggerated breath, causing her to laugh softly. Better. Do not become proud of yourself. Too late. I looked at her mouth and Dani noticed. The playful warmth in her eyes changed into something deeper. Tell me if you want me to stop. I will. She leaned closer, and the first kiss was so gentle that for one brief moment I could not understand why I had been afraid. Her lips moved slowly against mine, giving me time to respond, and my fingers tightened around her hand. Dani pulled back slightly. Are you all right? I noted. Use words. Yes. Yes, you're all right? Yes, Dani. Something changed in her expression when I said her name. She kissed me again, and this time I was ready. I raised my free hand to her shoulder as her hair brushed against my cheek. She tasted faintly of mint and the drink she had ordered at the bar. The kiss became deeper, but Dani remained patient. There was no pressure. There was only warmth and the slow discovery of something I had spent years avoiding. When Dani moved closer, I stepped backward instinctively until my legs touched the edge of the bed. She stopped immediately. Do you want to sit down? I don't know. That wasn't a difficult question. Everything feels difficult right now. You're still overthinking? I always overthink. I remember. I stared at her. You haven't spoken to me properly in 10 years. I still remember you. The answer struck deeper than it should have. For one dangerous moment, the room felt too intimate. This was supposed to be simple, a distraction, a way to stop thinking about Madison. I did not want old memories becoming involved. I kissed Dani before she could say anything else. A quiet sound of surprise escaped her before her arms came around my waist. After that, I began to lose track of time. There were more kisses, soft laughter when I became tangled in the sleeve of my dress, and one humiliating moment when I attempted to appear confident and nearly fell backward onto the bed. Dani caught me. She did not laugh immediately. She waited several seconds before sitting down and laughing so hard that she had to cover her face. I hate you, I told her. You tried to remove your dress while you were still wearing your coat. I was nervous. You looked like you were fighting the fabric. Be quiet. I pushed her shoulder, but Dani caught my wrist and kissed the inside of it. The laughter disappeared from my throat. Dani looked up at me, and the teasing in her eyes softened as she drew me closer. After that, the night became warmer, quieter, and more serious. She asked before every new touch and gave me time whenever I hesitated. She never made me feel foolish for not knowing what to do. When I finally stopped thinking, when I allowed myself to feel instead of analyzing every movement, I began to understand why people risked so much for closeness. It was not only physical, it was the trust, the vulnerability, and the terrifying relief of being held without needing to perform or pretend. Later, I lay beneath the sheets with my face turned toward the windows. The city lights blurred behind the glass. Dani rested beside me, one arm under her pillow. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. My entire body felt unfamiliar. Not bad, just different. When I finally turned toward Dani, I discovered that she was already watching me. What? I asked. Nothing. You're staring. I do not stare. You watched me through the graduate office window yesterday. My face warmed. I was looking into the hallway. Of course. I pulled the blanket higher around myself. Dani smiled. How do you feel? Fine. Only fine? My back ached, my face was hot, and my thoughts were scattered. I also felt lighter than I had in weeks. It was... Dani waited patiently. I could not bring myself to compliment her. Her confidence was already excessive. It was acceptable. Acceptable? She laughed. For a first attempt? Your first attempt? I participated. You nearly apologized to the lamp. I bumped into it. You said, "Excuse me." I'm polite.
Dani rolled onto her back, still laughing, while I stared at the ceiling. I had slept with Dani Kingston, my childhood friend, the woman I had ignored for 10 years, the person's jacket I had vomited on less than 24 hours ago. My life had taken an alarming turn. "This does not mean anything," I said. Dani's laughter stopped. She turned toward me, but her expression revealed nothing. "I mean, we both understand what this is. And what is it? A one-time thing. Is that what you want?" "Yes." The answer came too quickly. Dani noticed, and I noticed that she noticed. I turned away from her. "I don't want another relationship." "I didn't ask for one." "Good. Good." The room became uncomfortably quiet. I hated the tension I had created, but I did not know how to remove it. After a moment, Dani reached over and pulled the blanket higher around my shoulder. "Sleep." That sounded like an order. "You look exhausted. You're the reason." A smile returned to her voice. "There she is." "Who?" "The real Claire Bennett." I frowned. "That is what Naomi says. Naomi is intelligent. She can be invasive. She can be both." I closed my eyes as the bed shifted beside me. I expected Dani to move away. Instead, her hand found mine beneath the blanket. She did not hold it tightly. She simply rested her fingers against mine. I should have moved. This was supposed to be casual, meaningless, and nothing more than one reckless decision. But I remained still. For the first time since opening Madison's apartment door, my mind became quiet. That should have frightened me. Instead, I fell asleep.
When I woke the next morning, the first thing I noticed was that my back hurt. The second thing I noticed was that Dani was gone. I remained beneath the hotel sheets for several moments, staring at the empty space beside me, while morning sunlight poured through the large windows. The pillow still held a slight impression from where her head had been, but the rest of the room was silent. For one irrational second, I wondered whether I had imagined the entire night. Then I tried to sit up. A dull ache moved through my body, and every memory returned at once. Dani's hand in mine, her mouth against mine, her voice asking if I was certain, my dress falling onto the hotel floor, the way I had stopped thinking and trusted her. I dropped back against the pillow and covered my face with both hands. Oh, God, I had slept with Dani Kingston. It was one thing to understand that fact during the night when the room was dark and her body was warm beside me. It was another thing to face it alone beneath unforgiving morning sunlight. Dani had been my first, not Madison, the woman I had dated for 3 years and once planned to marry. Dani, my former childhood friend, my current academic irritation, the woman I had accused of collecting diseases less than 2 days earlier. I slowly pulled the blanket over my head. Perhaps I could remain under it until graduation. Unfortunately, hiding did not stop my memories. I remembered the way Dani had laughed when I became tangled in my clothes. I remembered gripping her shoulders, trying not to show how nervous I was. I remembered discovering that her confidence was not entirely an act. She had been gentle when I needed gentleness, patient when I hesitated, and far too skilled for the experience to be dismissed as merely acceptable. Not that I would ever tell her that. I had already given her enough reasons to become unbearable. I moved carefully onto my side and looked around the room. Her clothes were gone. Her handbag was gone. There was no sound from the bathroom. She had left without waking me. A heavy feeling settled beneath my ribs. I told myself that was normal. We had agreed the night meant nothing. Dani had not promised breakfast, conversation, or a meaningful gaze across matching cups of coffee. This was not a romantic movie. It was a one-night stand. People left after one-night stands. At least I assumed they did. My entire knowledge of casual relationships came from television, overheard conversations, and Naomi's unsolicited advice. Still, leaving without a word felt rude. Dani could have woken me. She could have said goodbye. She could have left a note. My gaze moved toward the small table near the window.
A folded sheet of hotel stationery rested beside a bottle of water. I stared at it. Then I carefully climbed out of bed, wrapping the blanket around myself as I crossed the room. The note was written in quick, elegant handwriting. I had to leave early for a family matter. Drink the water and text me when you wake up. Please eat something before you try to survive on coffee again. Dani. I read it twice. Then I looked toward the empty bed. All right, that is slightly less rude. I drank the water, showered, dressed, and checked out of the hotel without contacting her. She had asked me to send a message. I did not. I told myself I had forgotten. That was not true. I was not ready to discover what came after a night like ours. If I texted Dani, she might answer casually, and I would feel foolish for caring. She might answer warmly, which would be worse because I wouldn't know what it meant. Silence felt safer. Silence usually did. I spent the rest of the morning cleaning my apartment. It was not dirty. That had never stopped me from cleaning during moments of emotional crisis. I washed clothes that were already clean, rearranged the kitchen cabinets, vacuumed beneath furniture, and scrubbed the bathroom mirror until I could see every poor decision reflected in perfect detail. By lunchtime, I had prepared soup, toasted bread, and convinced myself that the previous night had served its purpose. I had not thought about Madison for several hours. That had been the goal. Dani had distracted me from the betrayal, proved I was capable of desire, and helped me move beyond the fear that had controlled me for years. It had been like fast food, pleasant in the moment, probably unhealthy, best enjoyed once and never examined too closely afterward. I carried my lunch into the living room and sat carefully on the sofa. The ache in my back had not improved. Fast food should not cause joint pain, I muttered. The doorbell rang. I froze with the spoon halfway to my mouth. Nobody was supposed to visit me. Naomi never arrived without warning because she knew I might pretend not to be home. My mother always called first, usually several times. Madison had no reason to be there, and if she was, I had no intention of opening the door.
The bell rang again. I placed the bowl on the coffee table and walked toward the entrance. When I looked through the peephole, Dani's face stared back at me. I immediately stepped away. Why was she here? More importantly, why did she look so composed while I was wearing soft gray lounge pants, a loose sweater, and no makeup? The bell rang a third time. "I know you're home," she called through the door. I remained silent. "Your car is downstairs." "That proves nothing." Dani laughed softly from the hallway. "Open the door, Claire." I took a moment to smooth my hair before unlocking it. Dani stood outside carrying 2 paper bags and a cardboard drink holder. She wore cream trousers, a fitted black blouse, and a light coat draped over one arm. Her dark hair fell around her shoulders in glossy waves. I hated that she could appear so polished after ruining my ability to sit comfortably. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Good afternoon to you too." She stepped forward. I placed one hand against the doorframe. "I did not invite you inside. You also did not answer my message." "I did not send a message. I left a note." "That is not the same thing." Dani lifted the bags. "I brought supplies." "What kind of supplies?" "Food, water, electrolyte drinks, pain relievers, fruit, and snacks." I looked at the second bag. The top of a wine bottle was clearly visible. "And alcohol?" "That is for later." "Later?" Dani smiled. "Are you going to make me stand in the hallway?" I should have said yes. Instead, I moved aside. She entered as though she had been visiting my apartment for years. She carried the bags into the kitchen, placed everything on the counter, and began removing items without asking where they belonged. There were sports drinks, bottled water, sandwiches, fresh fruit, chocolate, crackers, 2 bottles of wine, and a small package that I recognized immediately. I picked it up. "What is this?" Dani glanced over. "You know what it is." My face heated. "Why did you bring these?" "I like being prepared." "You came here to take care of me or continue what happened last night?" "Both options were available."
I placed the package back into the bag. You are extremely confident. You invited me. Yesterday. And today you ignored me. I was busy. Dani looked around my spotless apartment. Doing what? Preparing for an inspection? I cleaned. I can see that. She studied me more carefully, and her playful expression softened. How do you feel? Fine. You're standing strangely. I always stand like this. No, you don't. I straightened immediately. Dani moved closer. Is your back hurting? No. You held it when you walked away from the door. I slept badly. Her eyebrows rose. I realized the mistake as soon as the words left my mouth. A slow smile appeared on her face. You slept badly. That is not what I meant. You seemed comfortable last night. You were asleep. I was not asleep every second. I turned toward the kitchen counter. Would you like water? I came here with water. Then drink your own. Dani's laughter followed me as I reached for a glass. She leaned against the counter. Was I too rough? The glass nearly slipped from my hand. I turned toward her. You cannot ask questions like that in the middle of my kitchen. Where should I ask them? Nowhere. I need to know. You do not need to know anything. I would prefer not to injure you. I am not injured. You can barely bend. I placed the glass on the counter more forcefully than necessary. My body is adjusting. To me? To new physical activity. That sounds very clinical. I am trying to have a serious conversation. So am I. Her eyes held mine, and I suddenly understood that beneath the teasing, Dani was actually concerned. The realization unsettled me. She had returned with food because she thought I might not eat. She remembered the way I had held my back. She bought medicine, water, and everything else she believed I might need. Madison had dated me for 3 years and still forgot that I disliked artificial strawberry flavoring. Dani had known me again for less than a week and brought the exact crackers I preferred. I looked away. Why are you doing all this? Dani's expression became confused. Doing what? Taking care of me? You had an emotional disaster, drank too much twice, and spent the night with me. I thought checking on you was reasonable. That sounds like pity. It isn't. Then what is it? She considered the question before smiling lightly. Basic care between friends with benefits. I stared at her. Friends with what? Benefits. I heard you. You looked confused. Because we are not friends with benefits. Dani folded her arms. We are childhood friends, and we have now experienced a benefit. That is not how relationships work. It appears to be exactly how this one worked. We barely spoke for 10 years. We're speaking now. We did not even greet each other in the hallway. You did not greet me. You ignored me too. Only after you made it clear you did not want me around. Her answer came without humor. I became quiet. Dani looked toward the living room before returning her attention to me. You were the one who walked away first, Claire. I was 14. So was I. You changed. So did I. You became reckless. You became cruel. The word caught me off guard. I was not cruel. You acted as though knowing me embarrassed you. That is not true. You stopped sitting with me at lunch. You stopped answering my calls. When we saw each other at school, you looked through me. I thought you did not care. I learned not to show that I cared. The room became still. I had spent years believing Dani had ignored me because our friendship meant nothing to her. It never occurred to me that she might have been responding to the distance I created. Before I could answer, Dani pushed away from the counter. You should drink some water. I can get it myself. I know. Dani took a glass from the cabinet beside the sink. I watched her. How did you know where my glasses were? She filled it from the filtered pitcher. Your mother showed me the last time I was here.
You have been here once. That was enough. The memory returned. Several months earlier, I had come home from campus and found my mother sitting in my living room with Dani. They had been drinking tea and discussing the security system in my building as though Dani had been appointed my personal bodyguard. I had not been pleased. My mother had insisted that I lived alone and should call Dani if I ever needed help. I had pointed out that I had survived perfectly well without her. Dani had remained silent throughout most of the argument, but the look she gave me before leaving stayed in my mind for days. At the time, I assumed she had come only because our mothers forced her. Now she moved through my kitchen as though the apartment was familiar. She handed me the glass. I took a drink of water, trying not to show how annoyed I was. Dani watched me carefully. "You're angry." Dani's mouth slowly curved. "Were you upset because I left?" "No. You sound upset." I thought it was disrespectful. Even though this was a one-time thing, that does not mean you can behave however you like. I told you where I was going. You told a piece of paper. Dani tried to hide her smile. I pointed at her. "Do not look pleased." "I'm not pleased. You are. I'm only surprised." "Why?" "Because you cared." "I cared about basic manners." "Of course, I did." Dani stepped closer. My back touched the counter. Her expression had lost most of its teasing, leaving something gentler behind. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have woken you." The apology was so sincere that I did not know how to respond. She continued quietly. "My father called early. There was a family issue and I needed to leave. You were sleeping and you looked exhausted. I thought letting you rest was kinder." I gripped the glass more tightly. Dani looked at me for a moment before lowering her voice. "Are you avoiding me?" "No. You keep moving away whenever I come near you, because you keep coming too near." Her eyes moved over my face. She lifted one hand and touched my cheek. My entire body went still. Her fingers were warm against my skin. The simple contact sent my heart into an embarrassing rhythm. I should have moved away. Instead, I stared at her. Dani's gaze lowered to my mouth. The air between us seemed to change. This was not the hotel. I was not drunk, heartbroken, or trying to prove something. I was standing in my own kitchen in the middle of the afternoon, completely aware of what was happening. That made it more dangerous. Dani leaned closer. Her lips touched mine softly. The kiss was brief, barely more than a question. When she pulled away, I realized I was still holding my breath. She watched my face. "Still uncomfortable?" I stared at her. "That was not fair." "What wasn't?" "You kissed me without warning. You kissed me first at the hotel. That was different." "How?" "I had made a decision." "And now?" "I have not made any decision." Dani's mouth curved slightly. "You kissed me back." I reacted automatically. "Should we test that theory?" "No." She leaned in again. I placed my hand over her mouth before she could reach me. Dani's eyes widened with amusement. "No," I repeated. She kissed the center of my palm. I pulled my hand away as though burned. "You are impossible. You invited me inside. You brought food." That was my strategy. I looked at the bags spread across my kitchen and then back at her. "You planned this?" "I planned to check on you." "And the rest?" Dani glanced toward the package I had returned to the bag. "I believe in possibilities." I covered my face for a moment. This woman was going to destroy my peace. The worst part was, I was beginning to suspect I might let her. The next morning, I went to the graduate office early because apparently I believed fluorescent lighting and unanswered emails could cure emotional confusion. They could not. I sat at my desk with the same cup of coffee in my hand for so long that it stopped steaming. I had opened the exhibition schedule, answered exactly 0 emails, and reread the same sentence about gallery lighting 5 times without understanding a single word. Because every time I tried to work, my brain betrayed me. Dani in my kitchen, Dani's hand on my cheek, Dani kissing me while I was completely sober, completely aware, and unfortunately very responsive. That was the part I hated most. I could explain away the hotel. I had been drunk earlier, heartbroken, angry, and making several choices that probably should have required a signed waiver. But the kitchen kiss had no excuse. I was standing in my own apartment in the middle of the day wearing lounge pants and enough emotional denial to power an entire building. And I had kissed her back. Worse, I had wanted her to do it again. Claire. I heard my name, but I ignored it because pretending not to exist felt like a reasonable plan. Claire! A hand snapped in front of my face. I blinked and looked up. Naomi stood beside my desk wearing a red sweater, holding a folder against her chest and staring at me like she had discovered a crime scene. How long have you been there? Long enough to watch your soul leave your body and not come back. I'm working. You have been holding that coffee like it personally disappointed you. I looked down at the cup. She was right. I had not taken a single drink. It was hot, I said. It gave up on being hot before I got here. Naomi pulled a chair beside my desk without asking. That was how she entered conversations, buildings, and emotional boundaries. What happened? Nothing. Claire. I am serious. So am I. You only say nothing when something embarrassing happened and you're trying to bury it under productivity. I turned toward my computer. I have exhibition forms to finish. Naomi leaned into my line of sight. Is this about Madison? No. The answer came too fast. Naomi's eyebrows rose. I closed my eyes for 1 second because, yes, I had walked directly into that trap like a fool with a graduate degree. Oh, she said slowly. So it is not Madison. Interesting. It is work. You do not look like work happened to you. You look like a woman happened to you. I picked up my coffee and finally took a drink, mostly to avoid answering. It was cold. Naomi smiled. There it is. There is nothing. Did someone kiss you? I choked. Not dramatically, just enough for her face to light up with the kind of joy only a terrible friend could experience at my expense. Oh my God. Lower your voice. You did. I did not say that. You did not have to. Your face resigned from the conversation. I glanced around the office. A few graduate assistants were working nearby, but graduate students had a special talent for pretending not to listen while absorbing every word like recording devices with student debt. I leaned closer. This is not a public discussion. Naomi's smile only widened. Then there is a discussion. I should have lied. I should have said I was tired, stressed, haunted by deadlines, anything. Instead, I heard myself ask, very quietly, have you ever had something casual with someone? Naomi froze. Then her eyes became enormous. Claire Bennett. Do not make that face. You had sex. Naomi! You did. I asked a general question. You do not ask general questions about sex. You once changed tables at a restaurant because the couple next to us said the word contraception. They were speaking loudly. They were whispering. They were emotionally loud. Naomi covered her mouth, but it was too late. She was already vibrating with information she did not have yet. Who? No one. Claire. I am not telling you. Then I know her. I hated how quickly she found the correct door and kicked it open. Her expression changed as she started sorting through possibilities. I could see the names moving through her mind. Then her face went completely still. No. I looked at my coffee. Do not. Dani Kingston? I said nothing. Naomi grabbed my arm so fast I nearly spilled the cold coffee on both of us. You slept with Dani Kingston? Would you like to shout it into the hallway next?
You absolutely will not.
Naomi looked like she had just witnessed a major historical event. You went from refusing to look at her in the hallway to sleeping with her? It was a complicated week. You called her a wealthy delinquent. She is wealthy. And tattooed. That was an observation. And apparently very persuasive. I gave her a look. She raised both hands. Fine, I will behave. She lasted exactly 3 seconds. How was it? Naomi, I had to ask once. No, you did not. Was it good? I am not answering. That means yes. It means you are invasive. It means yes. I closed my laptop with a little more force than necessary. That made Naomi's smile fade, which was how I knew she had finally noticed the part I had been trying not to show. Okay, she said, softer now. Are you all right? I looked down at my coffee again. I don't know. That was the first honest thing I had said all morning. Naomi leaned back in her chair and waited. The silence worked on me. It always did. Naomi could be ridiculous, but she knew when to shut up long enough for a person to betray herself. It happened after Madison, I said, the first time. I wanted to feel like I could still want someone. I wanted to stop thinking about what I saw in Madison's apartment. Naomi's face softened. I don't regret that night, I continued. That's the problem. I thought I could call it one reckless decision and move on. But Dani came to my apartment yesterday. Naomi straightened. She came to your apartment? She brought food. That is not casual. She said it was basic care between friends with benefits. Naomi stared at me. What? I asked. That woman is either very dangerous or very stupid. She is not stupid, then dangerous. I hated that my heart agreed. She brought water, medicine, food, wine, and... I stopped. Naomi's eyes narrowed with interest. And? Nothing. Oh, it was definitely something. I am not telling you that part. Fine, continue. She remembered things, I said. Little things. The crackers I like, the way I held my back. She noticed I had not eaten properly. Madison dated me for 3 years and still forgot I hated fake strawberry flavoring, but Dani somehow remembered a snack preference from childhood like it was important. Naomi was quiet for a moment. That was worse than teasing. What? I asked. That is the kind of thing that gets people in trouble. I know. No, I mean real trouble, emotional trouble, the type where you tell yourself it is physical, but then you start noticing whether she texted back, whether she stayed the night, whether she is speaking to other women. I am not doing that. You are already doing part of it. I am not. You are sitting here staring at dead coffee because she kissed you in your kitchen. My mouth opened. Nothing useful came out. Naomi nodded like a prosecutor resting her case. Exactly. I hated how reasonable she sounded. I agreed it was casual, I said. Did both agree, or did you announce it while panicking and Dani let you? That was rude. It was also accurate enough to make me uncomfortable. I told her I did not want another relationship. And did she say she did not want one either? I remembered Dani's silence, the way her expression had shifted for a half-second before she covered it with that calm face she used when she wanted people to think nothing could hurt her. She agreed, I said. Naomi did not look convinced. Claire, casual only works when both people want the same thing. If one person wants attention, affection, reassurance, or rules the other person never agreed to, it stops being casual. It becomes a relationship with bad communication and worse branding. I frowned. That sounds dramatic. It is dramatic. So are you. I am not. You slept with your childhood friend, let her bring groceries to your apartment, kissed her again while sober, and now you're pretending the crisis is theoretical. I looked toward the office door and considered leaving. Naomi caught my wrist before I could stand. Her voice softened again, which was unfair because it made her harder to dismiss. I'm not judging you. Honestly, I'm glad someone treated you gently after Madison. You deserved that. But do not lie to yourself just because you're scared. That is how people get hurt twice. The mention of Madison made something in my chest tighten. I am not going to fall for Dani. Naomi gave me a sad little smile.
Maybe, but you already care what she does. I care what everyone does. No, you care what everyone thinks. That is different. I hated that sentence so much I stood up and grabbed a stack of papers from my desk. Naomi looked at them. Those are blank. I am delivering them. To whom? Someone who appreciates privacy. Her laughter followed me into the hallway. For the rest of the day, I avoided Naomi with the discipline of a woman avoiding unpaid taxes. Unfortunately, avoiding Naomi didn't mean avoiding her words. Casual only works when both people want the same thing. You already care what she does. I hated advice that had the nerve to be useful. By late afternoon, I had actual exhibition forms to deliver to the architecture wing. I took them myself because walking cross campus gave me something to do with my body besides overthink. The hallways were busy enough that I could blend in. Students passed with sketch tubes, coffee cups, models, and the dead-eyed expressions of people who hadn't slept properly since midterms. I was almost at the studio when I heard Dani's name. "Dani, are you coming to my place tonight?" I stopped. I should have kept walking. A normal person would have kept walking. A woman in a healthy, casual arrangement would have continued to her destination and minded her own business. I took one step closer to the open studio door. Inside, Dani sat on the edge of a drafting table, one boot braced against the stool below her. Rolled plans lay beside her. She looked relaxed, the way she always did when she wanted the world to think nothing could touch her. Standing in front of her was a woman I didn't know. Pink hair, short white jacket, fitted lavender dress, silver boots that looked personally hostile to ankles. She was beautiful in a very deliberate way, like she woke up and chose chaos with accessories. She touched Dani's arm while talking. Dani did not move away.
And listen, I understood the situation logically. Dani was allowed to speak to women. Dani was allowed to have friends. Dani was allowed to have a past, a present, and an entire social life that had nothing to do with me. We were not dating. We had made no promises. I had personally insisted we were casual, so really, if anyone had created this nightmare, it was me with my own mouth. But apparently my body had not received the memo because my stomach twisted like someone had reached inside me and pulled. The woman leaned closer. Dani said something I could not hear. The pink-haired woman smiled. That was all. That was the whole scandal. A conversation, a touch on the arm, a smile. Nothing dramatic, nothing I had the right to question. And somehow it ruined my entire ability to breathe normally. Naomi's voice returned in my head like an unwanted ghost. Who she is speaking to? Jealousy. Exclusivity. I gripped the forms tighter. This was Dani Kingston. Of course women flirted with her. I had known the rumors before the hotel. I had known she was charming, confident, beautiful, and completely capable of making people feel chosen when she was only looking at them. Maybe that was what had happened to me. Maybe I was not special. Maybe I was just the latest woman foolish enough to mistake Dani's attention for meaning. That thought hurt more than I wanted to admit. I stepped back before either of them could see me, but my heel hit the floor too hard. The sound echoed down the hallway. A few students turned. I forced a smile that probably looked medically concerning. My shoe slipped. Nobody believed me. I walked away fast. By the time I reached the graduate office again, the forms were wrinkled in my hand, and I was angry with everyone. Dani for sitting there looking relaxed, the pink-haired woman for existing near her, Naomi for being right, and myself because this was exactly why casual relationships were stupid. I sat at my desk and opened an email. I read the first sentence 5 times. Nothing. I closed it. The worst part was not even the jealousy. Jealousy was embarrassing, but I could survive embarrassment. The worst part was the thought that came after. Madison had promised me love and still made me feel replaceable. Dani had promised me nothing. So if Dani made me feel replaceable too, whose fault would that be? I stared at the blank screen until the office blurred slightly. Then I put the forms down, picked up my cold coffee, and finally drank it. It tasted awful. That felt appropriate. For 2 days, I ignored Dani's messages. Not because I was calm. Calm people answer messages. Calm people do not stare at their phones, unlock them, reread the same 3 texts, then lock the screen again like the phone personally offended them. Dani sent 3. Are you busy? Did you survive the week? Should I assume you have decided to disappear again? I read each one. I answered none. Was that mature? No. Was I aware of that? Unfortunately, yes. But every time I tried to type something normal, I remembered the pink-haired woman in the architecture studio. I remembered her hand on Dani's arm. I remembered the way Dani sat there relaxed and beautiful and completely unbothered while another woman asked if she was coming over that night. The worst part was that Dani had done nothing wrong. I had no proof of anything. I had no right to ask questions. I had personally insisted that we were casual, which meant I had built the cage and then got offended when I found myself inside it. By Friday afternoon, I had almost convinced myself I did not care. Then, Dani walked into the graduate office carrying a white bakery box. The entire room noticed her before I did. People always noticed Dani. She had that irritating ability to enter a space like she had been expected there, even when she absolutely had not. She wore a dark green blouse tucked into high-waisted trousers, her long black hair swept over one shoulder, and her tattoo visible beneath her rolled sleeve. She looked directly at me. Hello? I stared at the box first, because it was safer than looking at her face. Why are you here? I had a meeting downtown. That explains why you were downtown. It does not explain why you are standing in my office. Dani placed the box on my desk. I passed a bakery. The logo on top was gold and familiar. I looked at it again, then at her. You did not pass this bakery. Her mouth curved. Technically, I passed it after driving there. That was the first problem. The second problem was what waited inside the box. Lemon cake. Small, pretty, decorated with candied citrus and white frosting. The exact kind I used to beg my mother for when I was younger. The exact kind I had not eaten in years. For a second, I forgot how to be annoyed. Dani leaned against the edge of my desk. You used to love lemon cake. When I was 13. You locked yourself in the bathroom on your birthday because your mother ordered chocolate. I was emotional. You told everyone nobody understood you. I was 13. I know, Dani's smile softened. It was memorable. I looked down at the cake again, and that was when Naomi's warning came back to slap me across the face. The moment you start caring whether she brought cake because she remembered your favorite flavor, you are not behaving casually. I hated Naomi, I hated useful advice, I hated lemon cake. Mostly, I hated that Dani had remembered. I can't eat much of this, I said. Dani's expression changed immediately. Why? I developed a mild citrus allergy a few years ago. The disappointment on her face was so immediate that I almost apologized, which was insane because I had not personally betrayed the cake. I didn't know, she said. There was no reason you would. I brought the wrong thing. No, you brought something thoughtful. You can't eat it. I can have a small piece. You should not risk it. It's mild. That still means allergic. I looked at her. You drove all the way to Evanston for this? That was my choice. And you do not even like sweets. Dani paused. I stared at her. You do not like sweets? I bought it for you. Simple, direct, like she had not just driven across the city for a cake she didn't want, for a woman she was supposedly not dating. My heart reacted before I gave it permission. I stood too quickly and picked up the box. I'm taking this to the break table. Dani followed me with the calm expression of someone who knew she had already won something, even if neither of us could name what it was. The break table sat near the window, just far enough from the rest of the office for people to pretend they weren't listening. I cut myself a small piece and gave Dani a larger one. She looked at her plate. You told me you don't like sweets. You bought the cake. Now suffer with me. That sounds fair. I took the first bite. It tasted exactly how I remembered. Not better, not worse,
Exactly. That was somehow worse than if it had been terrible. Well, Dani asked. It's good. You look surprised. I am surprised. I thought nostalgia was lying to me. That was the goal. What was? To bring you something that felt familiar. I stared at the cake because looking at her was becoming dangerous. For a few minutes, we ate quietly. Dani barely touched hers, which made the whole thing more unfair. She had done this entirely for me and had not even tried to make that sound romantic. That was Dani's most irritating habit. She said things with emotional weight and then acted like she had only mentioned the weather. Finally, she asked, "What do you like now?" I looked up. What? You liked lemon cake when we were younger. What do you like now? Why do you want to know? So I do not spend another afternoon buying the wrong thing. You did not buy the wrong thing. You nearly poisoned me. That is dramatic. You were eating dessert with emergency medication in your bag. I smiled before I could stop myself. Dani saw it. Of course she did. Her expression shifted, softer and warmer, and I immediately looked down at my plate. What? I asked. Nothing. You're staring. You look less angry when you eat cake. I was not angry. You ignored 3 messages. I was busy. With what? Work. For 2 days? Yes. Dani leaned back in her chair. You could have said that. We are not required to report our schedules to each other. No, but most people answer messages. You have many people who can answer you. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Dani's eyebrows lifted.
I wanted to grab the sentence from the air and shove it back into my throat. What does that mean? She asked. Nothing. It sounded like something. It was not. Was it about a woman? No. A pink-haired woman? My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Dani's eyes narrowed slightly. You saw Brielle? I placed the fork down. Her name is Brielle? Yes. That is useful information. For what? In case I need to refer to her. Why would you need to refer to her? No reason. Dani's mouth curved. I hated that smile because it meant she was enjoying this. What did she want? I asked. To discuss a student project. You invited her to your house for a student project. So you were listening. I walked past the door and stopped. I had nowhere else to go. The hallway continues in both directions. I folded my arms. You do not need to explain anything to me. Apparently, I do. You don't. Then why are you angry? I'm not angry. You have said that several times this week while being very obviously angry. I looked toward the window because if I kept looking at her, I might admit something awful, like jealousy. Dani reached across the table and touched my wrist, just lightly enough that I could pretend it did not affect me. It affected me. I am not seeing Brielle, she said. I turned back too quickly. I did not ask. You wanted to. No. She flirts with me. I don't encourage it. You looked comfortable. I was sitting. That is not what I meant. I know. Her thumb moved once against my wrist. Such a small thing, barely anything, and still my entire body paid attention. Dani's voice lowered. I only have you. I hated that sentence, not because it was bad, because I wanted to believe it immediately. Do not say things like that, I said. Her forehead creased. Like what? Things that sound... I stopped because every word available was too honest. Misleading, I finally said. What was misleading? You say something intense and then act like it means nothing. I said I am only seeing you. That is exactly what I mean. It is the truth. That makes it worse. Dani watched me for a moment, and for once she did not tease. That made me more nervous. Why? She asked. Because I wanted to be the only one. Because the idea of Brielle touching her arm had made me angry for 2 days. Because casual was supposed to keep me safe, and somehow I had ended up jealous in a graduate office over lemon cake. I stood and collected the plates.
I need to get back to work. Claire, I'm serious. I know. That was the problem. Dani did know. She saw too much and she said too little, and somehow I still felt exposed. Before I could leave, she took the plates from my hands and carried them to the trash. Then she picked up the bakery box and closed it carefully. "Keep the rest," she said. "I told you I can barely eat it. Then keep it until you decide what you want to do with it." That sounded like it was about cake. It was not about cake. I returned to my desk and tried to work after she left, but the office felt different. The box sat beside my laptop like evidence. Lemon, frosting, danger. Naomi passed my desk an hour later and looked at it. Then she looked at me. I pointed at her. "Do not say one word." She raised both hands and kept walking. For once, she listened. That should have made me grateful. Instead, I wished Dani had texted again, which meant Naomi was right. And honestly, that was the most offensive part of the whole situation.
The exhibition dinner happened 2 nights later at a restaurant overlooking the Chicago River. By then, I had spent 48 hours trying to convince myself that the lemon cake meant nothing. This was difficult because the cake was still in my office refrigerator, quietly judging me every time I reached for my lunch. Dani had not pushed. She had not asked why I became strange at the break table. She had not demanded an answer I did not have. She had only sent one message that afternoon. "Text me when dinner ends." I stared at it for longer than necessary. Then I replied, "I'll be busy." She answered, "After." I rolled my eyes like I was annoyed. Then I smiled like an idiot. The restaurant was exactly the kind of place Professor Mercer loved. Dark blue walls, city lights on the water, expensive silverware, and enough donors in one room to make everyone speak slightly too carefully. I wore a fitted midnight blue dress with long sleeves and delicate earrings because it was a professional dinner, and definitely not because Dani might see me afterward. That thought had no influence. None. Professor Mercer looked at me twice when I entered. "You made an effort tonight." I thought the dinner was formal. "It is. You look lovely." I thanked him because that was what polite people did, even when their professor sounded a little too pleased with himself. Then he guided me toward Professor Julian Hart. I had admired Hart's work since I was 17. His paintings were one of the reasons I came to Lakeview. I had studied his use of light, defended his work in seminars, and once stood in front of one of his canvases for nearly 40 minutes like a dramatic art student in a film. Meeting him should have been exciting. At first, it was. He was older than his photographs, but still polished, silver-haired, sharp-suited, and very aware of his own importance. When Professor Mercer introduced me, Hart stood and offered my hand. "Claire Bennett, I've heard about your painting." I shook his hand carefully. "That is terrifying." He smiled. "Only if the work was bad." It was not. The words left my mouth before I could overthink them. Hart laughed. "Good. Confidence suits artists." For a while, the dinner went well. Hart asked about my work, my process, and the piece Mercer had shown him. He remembered details from the photograph that most people missed. When he said my painting had real restraint and emotion, I forgot how to breathe for a second. Then he mentioned a group exhibition in New York. "I would like you to submit something," he said. I stared at him. Professor Mercer smiled from across the table. "Claire, say something." "I would be honored." And I meant it. A New York exhibition could change things. Not magically, not overnight, but enough to matter. For a few minutes, I felt like my life was finally moving in a direction that belonged only to me. Then Mercer ruined it. "You two seem to understand each other very well," he said, laughing. "Perhaps Claire should visit your studio. Make a date of it." The table gave the kind of polite laugh people use when a powerful man says something uncomfortable, and nobody wants to admit it's uncomfortable. I smiled too because my career was sitting right there beside my water glass. Hart turned toward me. "Did you dress for me?" The question sounded playful, his gaze did not. "I dressed for the event." A careful answer. A true one. Mercer laughed again, which somehow made everything worse. Claire is very dedicated. She rarely notices anything outside her work. I notice plenty, I said. He ignored me. And she dressed beautifully tonight. Perhaps she knew Julian would be here. I imagined pushing Mercer into the river. Professionally, of course.
Hart reached for my hand. His fingers rested over mine on the table. "You don't need to defend yourself," he said. "I'm flattered either way." I looked down at his hand, then at his face. He smiled like he expected me to appreciate the attention. I carefully pulled my hand away and reached for my water. Professor Mercer enjoys inventing stories. Artists do that. That does not make every story welcome. For 1 second, Hart's smile changed. Then it returned. "I hope I have not made you uncomfortable." "Not at all." A lie. A useful one. Because here was the disgusting part. I could not afford to make a scene. Not easily. Not without calculating what it might cost. I was a graduate assistant sitting beside 2 famous men who could open doors or close them, and every woman in the room knew exactly what that meant, even if nobody wanted to say it. Hart leaned closer later while Mercer was busy charming a donor. "If you ever want private guidance, I would gladly make time for you." "That is kind. My studio is quiet, no interruptions. You could learn a great deal." His fingers touched my wrist. My stomach turned. I moved my hand away. I prefer working in university studios, for now. The meaning was not subtle anymore. I looked down at the silverware and briefly considered the fork. The knife was too dull. The fork had possibilities. The headline would be terrible, but maybe memorable. Before I could decide whether prison would damage my artistic career, a familiar voice came from the doorway. "Excuse me, are Professors Mercer and Hart here?" My entire body went still. Dani stood at the entrance to the private dining room. Not casual Dani, not kitchen Dani, not lemon cake Dani. This Dani wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit over a silk ivory blouse, her long dark hair falling behind her shoulders, a narrow gold chain at her throat. She looked elegant, controlled, and dangerous in the cleanest possible way. Several people turned. Dani's gaze found mine immediately. I forgot about the fork. Professor Mercer leaned back. "Can we help you?" Dani stepped inside. I apologize for interrupting. I was having dinner nearby and recognized Professor Mercer. Mercer looked pleased. "Are you one of my students?" "No." "A fan?" Dani's smile was polite enough to qualify as a weapon. "Not exactly." I stared at her, trying to understand what she was doing. I had told her River North, not the restaurant. Had she found Mercer's location online, searched the tagged photos, driven along the river until she found me? That was insane. It also sounded exactly like her. "I only wanted to greet a friend before joining my uncle," Dani said. My stomach tightened. Her uncle? Then Richard Kingston entered behind her. Every man at the table reacted like money suddenly gained a body and walked into the room. Richard Kingston was in his late 50s, silver-haired, sharply dressed, and one of the most influential real estate executives in Chicago. He was also Dani's favorite relative, which I knew because my father once said Richard was the only Kingston who could finish a conversation without trying to own the building. Professor Mercer stood so fast, his chair scraped against the floor. "Mr. Kingston!" Richard smiled. "Professor Mercer, I thought that was you." The change in Mercer's personality was almost beautiful. Seconds earlier, he had been turning my discomfort into dinner entertainment. Now he looked ready to donate an organ if Richard asked politely. "What an expected pleasure," Mercer said. "Please join us." Richard glanced toward Dani. "My niece said one of her oldest friends was dining here." Hart looked between them. "Which friend?" Dani walked directly to me. She stopped beside my chair and rested one hand lightly on the back. "Claire." Every face turned toward me. I looked up at her.
She smiled as if nothing strange was happening. Mercer blinked. You know Claire? Dani's hand slid from the chair to my shoulder. We grew up together. Hart's eyes moved over her, stopping briefly at the tattoo visible near her wrist. I would not have expected Assistant Bennett to have a friend with such a striking presence. It sounded like an insult dressed as a compliment. Dani glanced at her forearm. You can say delinquent. I've heard worse. Richard laughed. Hart did not. Dani pulled out the empty chair beside mine and sat down. I leaned toward her. What are you doing here? I whispered. She looked at the table. The adults are talking. I pinched the inside of her arm under the table. She did not even flinch. Richard accepted a glass of wine, and with the casual cruelty of rich men who enjoy watching smaller men panic, began praising Dani's architecture work. Mercer listened with increasing interest. Hart became quieter. Dani tried to stop Richard twice, which was adorable because he ignored her both times. Then Dani did something worse. She looked at Mercer and said, You do know who Claire's father is, don't you? My blood froze. Dani! She placed her hand over mine beneath the table. William Bennett, founder and chief executive of Bennett Materials. Silence. Mercer's wine glass touched his plate with a small, sharp sound. Hart looked at me like I had transformed into a lawsuit. Your father owns Bennett Materials? He asked. He does not own it alone, I said. Nobody cared about the distinction. That was why I rarely told people. The moment they knew, everything changed. Professors became kinder, donors became friendlier. Men like Julian Hart suddenly remembered where their hands belonged. Dani squeezed my fingers once. Then she leaned back casually. Claire's father can be protective. He likes to know where she is, who she works with, and whether anyone is making her uncomfortable. Mercer's face lost color. Dani glanced at Hart's hand resting on the table. He is especially interested in people who offer private guidance. I pressed my heel onto Dani's shoe. She did not stop. Richard took a drink of wine, clearly having the best night of his week. Hart cleared his throat. I think there has been a misunderstanding. Probably, said Dani. Claire is very polite. People often misunderstand her silence. I could not decide whether I wanted to kiss her or murder her. Possibly both. The rest of dinner changed immediately. Hart moved his chair several inches away from mine. Mercer stopped mentioning my dress, my personal life, and any imaginary connection between me and famous male painters. Suddenly, everyone cared deeply about my artistic opinions. It was pathetic. It was also a relief. Outside the restaurant, cold air moved along the river. I walked fast toward the sidewalk, my heels hitting the pavement too hard. Dani followed. Claire! I kept walking. Claire! I stopped beneath a street lamp and turned around. You went too far. Dani put both hands into the pockets of her coat. I'm welcome. I did not thank you. You should. I revealed my family to my professors. They were behaving badly. That does not give you permission to use my father like a weapon. It worked. That is not the point. Her expression sharpened. He was touching you. I was handling it. You were looking at the fork like you were choosing a target. I had not decided. That is not handling it. I crossed my arms. How did you even find the restaurant? Professor Mercer posted a photograph. The location tag was visible. You searched his account? I was curious. You were monitoring me. I was making sure you were safe. I did not ask you to. Dani stepped closer, and this time there was no teasing in her face. No, she said. You rarely ask for anything. You sit there, smile politely, and convince yourself you can tolerate whatever happens. Then you get angry when someone notices. That hit harder than I wanted it to. I was not helpless. I know. Then stop treating me like I am. I did not come because I thought you were helpless. Then why? Her eyes held mine. Because I wanted to. The same answer again. The answer that always undid me. I looked away toward the river. You argued with two professors like a child. You have no appreciation for charm. Charm? You threatened them with my father. I never threatened anyone. You suggested he monitors my workplace. He might. He does not. He should. You are impossible. Dani's mouth curved. You were relieved when you saw me. I was surprised. Relieved. A little. How little?
I lifted my fingers and left a tiny space between them. This much. Dani left it down at my hand, then back at my face. You can compensate me. I frowned. For what? For preventing a violent fork-related scandal. I was not actually going to stab him. You were evaluating the cutlery. It was an intrusive thought. Then compensate me for preventing an intrusive action. My face warmed. The way she looked at me made it obvious her idea of compensation did not involve money. How? I asked, even though I already knew I should not. Dani leaned closer until her lips were near my ear. I can think of something. A shiver moved through me. I stepped back immediately. Are you serious? It depends. Are you willing to pay your debt? You are ridiculous.
You admitted you were relieved. Very slightly. Relief still has value. I started walking again. Dani matched my pace with the calm confidence of a woman who knew I was not nearly as offended as I should have been. What exactly do you expect me to do? I asked. I gave you a suggestion. You did not give a suggestion. You whispered something obscene into my ear. I thought it was clear. It was unnecessarily detailed. I thought you asked how? A couple walking past glanced at us. I lowered my voice. Just because we are sleeping together does not mean I know how to do everything you describe. Dani's eyes widened. Lower your voice. You caused this. You are shouting private information beside the river. You embarrassed me first. Dani reached for my hand and pulled me gently toward the curb where her car waited with the valet. She opened the passenger door. Get in. Where are we going? To discuss your debt privately? That sounds threatening. You can go home. I looked at the open car door. Then at Dani. That was the thing about her. She teased, pushed, irritated, challenged, but when it mattered, she left the final choice with me. I got in. Dani smiled and closed the door. By the time we reached the hotel, all the confidence I had pretended to have in the car had disappeared. It had existed for maybe 10 minutes, long enough for me to imagine walking into the room with calm sophistication, making Dani nervous for once, proving that she was not the only person capable of control. Then the hotel door closed behind us and reality arrived. Dani placed her handbag on the desk and removed her coat. I remained near the entrance like a person visiting a museum exhibit labeled Bad Decisions. She turned toward me. You look frightened. I'm thinking. That is usually where your problems begin. I could leave. Yes. You would let me? Of course. No hesitation, no dramatic disappointment, no guilt. That should have made me feel safer. Instead, it made me want to stay. I stepped farther into the room. The atmosphere felt nothing like our first night. There was no heartbreak shoving me forward, no alcohol in my system, no Madison-shaped anger making me reckless. This time, I was here because I wanted to, and that made every small movement feel more intimate than it should have. Dani approached slowly. Have you decided how you want to compensate me? You are enjoying this too much. I saved your academic career. I exaggerated your family's behavior. I protected you from a famous predator. You also humiliated Professor Mercer. That was a bonus. I tried not to smile. Dani noticed anyway. There it is. What? You like me. I like the fact that Professor Hart stopped touching me. Because of me. Because he was afraid of my father. Information I provided. I folded my arms. Your role was administrative. Dani laughed softly and stopped in front of me. She reached for my waist, slow enough that I could move away if I wanted to. I did not move away. Still nervous? She asked. No. You are lying. The room is cold. The room is warm. You keep saying that in hotels. You keep blaming the temperature. Her lips touched mine before I could answer. The kiss started gently, but the moment my hands gripped the front of her blouse, Dani made a pleased sound that went directly through my body and ruined every argument I had prepared. I pulled back. Do not become confident. It may be too late. I have not done anything. You came with me. That proves nothing. It proves enough.
I kissed her again, mostly to stop her from speaking. Dani's hands moved around my waist, drawing me closer, and for a few seconds I let myself forget the rules. Casual, temporary, safe, all those words became useless when she held me like that. Then Dani guided us toward the bed. I placed one hand against her shoulder. Wait. She stopped immediately. What? There's something I need to tell you. Her expression became serious so quickly it almost made me feel worse. I looked away. This conversation had been easier in my head. In my head, I was calm and adult and not standing in a hotel room with a woman who could make my brain lose basic function. "What is it, Dani?" asked. "I'm on my period." Silence. I looked back. Dani blinked once. Then she released me, walked to the bed, and fell backward on it like someone had betrayed her on a battlefield. I stared. "What are you doing?" "Experiencing grief." "You are being dramatic. I was looking forward to tonight." "So was I." Dani lowered her hands from her face. "You were?" My face heated. "That is not important. It is extremely important." I sat on the edge of the bed. "You're acting like someone died. A dream died. You are ridiculous. I have waited days to see you." The humor thinned at the end of the sentence. I became still. "You have?" Dani looked away. "You were busy. I told you in advance." "I know. You said you understood." "I did." "You sounded cold." Her gaze returned to me. "Were you upset?" "No." "You were." "I was trying not to pressure you." That surprised me. I had spent those days wondering why she had not complained, why she had not asked to make time, why she accepted my schedule so easily, like my absence meant nothing. Apparently, she had been trying to respect me. I looked down at my hands. "I thought you didn't care."
Dani sat up slowly. "You thought that because I told you to focus on your exhibition? You sounded eager to end the call. I was disappointed. You did not see that. You told me you were busy. What was I supposed to do? Demand that you ignore your responsibilities for me?" An unpleasant realization settled inside me. Some ugly little part of me had wanted exactly that. Not because I wanted to abandon my work, I didn't. The exhibition mattered. My career mattered. But I had wanted proof that Dani would miss me. I had created a test she did not know she was taking, then got hurt when she did not perform it correctly. "I'm sorry," I said. Dani's eyebrows rose. "What?" "I said I'm sorry." "I heard. I'm appreciating the moment." I pushed her shoulder. She caught my wrist. "You do not need to apologize for being busy," she said. "I know." "Then what are you apologizing for?" "For assuming you did not care." Dani's expression softened. She lifted my hand and kissed my knuckles. "I care." The words were quiet. Too direct. My heart reacted like an idiot. I pulled my hand away and stood. Dani watched me carefully. "What are you doing?" "Thinking." "That remains dangerous. I may have another way to compensate you." Interest returned to her face immediately. "What way?" I walked toward the bathroom. "Wait here. You are leaving me alone after saying that? It will take 2 minutes. Claire!" I closed the bathroom door before she could ask anything else. Inside, I leaned against it and exhaled. What exactly was I doing? I did not have a clean answer. I only knew I didn't want the night to end with Dani dramatically grieving on the bed. She had helped me. She had respected my work. She had shown up when I needed her, even though I never asked. For once, I wanted to give something back, without turning it into a rule. The hotel robe hung behind the door. I changed into it, fixed my hair with shaky hands, and looked at myself in the mirror. My face was red. My confidence had returned just enough to create another dangerous decision. When I opened the door, Dani was sitting on the bed, leaning back on her hands. Her gaze moved over me. She became very quiet. That helped. A lot. I walked toward her and stopped between her knees. "You look surprised." "I am." "You said I owed you." "I did." "I am offering a different service." Dani's eyes darkened, but her hands were gentle when they settled against my hips. Are you sure? Yes. You do not have to. I know. Claire, what? You are much bolder than you pretend. I am not pretending. You've spent years looking at me as though I offended you by breathing. You often did. And now? Now you offend me in more complicated ways. Dani laughed and drew me closer. The rest of the evening did not unfold like the hotel night before. There was no rush, no panic, no need to prove something. There was teasing, yes, because Dani was physically incapable of behaving for longer than a few minutes, but there was also patience. She listened when I became nervous. She stopped when I needed a second. She made me laugh at exactly the moment I might have hidden behind embarrassment. That was the dangerous part, not the desire, the care. Afterward, I took a long shower while Dani stayed in the bedroom. When I returned, wrapped in a towel, she was lying against the pillows with the smug expression of someone who should not be allowed to speak. I stopped near the foot of the bed. What? You are talented. I narrowed my eyes. Do not speak. For someone inexperienced, Dani, you adapted quickly. I am warning you, she smiled. Perhaps you were born with addictive qualities. I threw a pillow. You are saying nonsense again. I am complimenting you. It does not sound like a compliment. It was one. I threw the pillow. Dani caught it and placed it behind her head. Thank you. I turned away and began drying my hair with a towel, because if I stayed facing her, I might throw something heavier. Behind me, the mattress shifted. Dani came up behind me and gently took the towel from my hands. I can do it myself. I know. Then give it back. I have special techniques. You say that about everything. Because I am skilled. She guided me toward the chair near the vanity and picked up the hairdryer. I stared at her reflection in the mirror. You know how to style hair? Yes. How? Experience. My irritation arrived immediately. With how many women? Dani plugged in the dryer. I have sisters. I paused. Oh. Disappointed? No. You sounded jealous. I was curious. Of course. She began drying my hair carefully, brushing through the ends with more patience than I expected. I watched her in the mirror. She looked too natural standing behind me like that, one hand moving through my hair, the other controlling the dryer. Every now and then, her fingers brushed the side of my neck, and every time, I had to pretend my body didn't notice. Eventually, she turned the dryer off. The room became quiet. Her hands rested lightly on my shoulders. I met her eyes in the mirror. Are you going to keep doing that? Doing what? That thing. What thing? You touch me, say confusing things, and then act like I imagined the entire moment. Dani looked thoughtful. Do I? Yes. How? You're doing it right now. Her smile appeared slowly. You always think you are winning. Are you? Not tonight. Her eyebrows rose. For once, I enjoyed surprising her. You begged. She did not. You did. When? Earlier. I was polite. That's my excuse. It's a good one. I climbed onto the bed and pointed at her. You won. Dani laughed. I bounced once on the mattress before I could stop myself, because apparently victory made me childish. You admit defeat. For tonight, she said. That still counts. Yes. I lay back against the pillows, satisfied. Dani joined me, turning onto her side. In the dim room, the teasing faded into something warmer. She looked at me like I wasn't temporary, like she had no intention of treating this as a mistake we would eventually stop making. That should have frightened me. Instead, I moved closer. Dani lifted the blanket over both of us. Comfortable? She asked. Yes. Only comfortable? I smiled. Acceptable. She laughed softly and pulled me into her arms. I rested my head against her chest and listened to the steady beat of her heart. For once, I did not create a rule to explain the moment. I did not call it casual. I did not call it dangerous. I did not call it anything. I simply let myself have it, which honestly was probably the most dangerous thing I had done all week.